just wanted to go and learn more about playing. I have this injury, and I was never treated like I had an injury. I was treated just like anyone else. They were like, all right, well, can you strum? And I said, yeah, I can beat the strings. He's like, all right, well, pick up that guitar and let's go. I hope that anyone in here, when they pick up a guitar, I hope that he found the ability to be in a moment. My guy was. Guitars for Vets is incredible and giving us a new purpose and helping us learn a new skill. Because I guarantee you, there's no one in this room that before they joined the military was like, when I got out of the military, I'm going to play the guitar. Guarantee you that was not it. I know it wasn't for me. I was shot 10 times in Afghanistan, 5 times in the shoulder, 4 times in the hip, once in the thigh. Anyone who's ever been injured gets into that place, right? That down, that super dark place where you just start feeling sorry for yourself. And sometimes that leads to the worst. Sometimes you find something and you're able to escape into it, find a sense of peace and a new escape and a new purpose. I had a guitar in the corner of my room, and one day I decided, I'm gonna learn how to play this thing. It became my new escape, my new sense of purpose, and my new reason for waking up every day. In fact, I know some people in this room understand that completely. Fast forward a little bit, do a chance encounter. I shared my story about me getting shot and using music as a therapy. 3 hours later, I got a call, and Doug Johnson at A&R, who is an incredible songwriter, one of the greatest songwriters I've ever met in my life. He called me and he was like, hey man, we need to meet. 2 years later, I signed my record deal with Black River Entertainment. So not only do I get to play music, but I get to write music as well. Still, to this day, when I'm on stage, that is my therapy. That is my moment when nothing else in the world matters. And I'm able to just disappear and escape and be in a moment. All of that happened because of support from people like y'all. All the instructors in this room, thank you guys from the bottom of my heart and anybody else heart. You have no idea. I wouldn't be where I'm at without y'all. Go live your dreams, man. It's never too late.
We did it. Hey.
How do you follow that?
We don't. All right, the show's over, guys.
Okay.
That's it. Show's over. Nah, we wanted to bring attention to our partnership with Guitars for Vets and Original Grain Watches. It's an organization that's near and dear to my heart. And to answer your question, Tex, yes, Lindsay helps manage that program, but it came about via Tim Godwin and Bob Taylor, I believe. And then we have a good relationship that is been maintained by our Director of Sustainability, Scott Paul, and of course, Lindsay Love. So am I a part of it? I was just a part of that video, but I support it a whole bunch, being a veteran myself. So let's kick off the show, I think. We usually come on and do this thing where we joke about being live.
We're live.
We're live, I think, Mike.
But are we alive?
We are alive.
That is debatable.
You're never alive unless you have a countdown.
Yeah, we need that right now.
Do it, Mike. And now this is where.
What time is it?
What time is it? This is where we talk about having Andy Lund come back. But
we do that every episode. Yeah,
we
need to have Andy Lund back. There's a massive time difference there for that one.
Where is Andy Lund?
He's probably somewhere in Tokyo.
Is that where he is right now?
Yeah,
probably.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Really?
Well, but who knows? I'm saying Tokyo. He could be on the road traveling. He could be anywhere. But I know Japan is where he is stationed, but he could be anywhere within Japan.
Do you think he's listening to Willie Nelson?
I don't know about that one. I can't answer that.
Can't answer that.
Would he be listening to Willie Nelson? Is that what we're?
I don't know. Wouldn't you be listening to Willie Nelson? Like
That's like a random artist that you just picked out.
I know.
I'm gonna say the Beatles more. I'm just gonna toss that.
Yeah, I would be like, yeah, he's probably listening to the Beatles.
Is the
Or
Beatles?
the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Or
Do you remember when you were in the Beatles? That was awesome.
that was
Jim,
awesome.
ladies and gentlemen, we have a
Sure.
great show tonight. For those of you who are new to Primetime, this is a guitar nerd talk show. We keep the nerd and guitar nerd. That's for sure. We like to talk a whole lot. And sometimes we talk about guitars. Tonight, we're going to talk about guitars. Maybe you'll be able to hear a couple of guitars. Probably
Parts of
not.
guitars.
Parts of guitars. We're definitely going to talk about parts of guitars. We have special guests with us tonight, our editorial director, Jim Kirlin. Everybody clap. Hey. If those of you are fans of Wood&Steel magazine, you know that Jim is a recurring guest on the show. He's been on a couple of times now. And then we got Rob Magargal, who is our service network manager. Rob Magargal. Hey.
Our other returning champion.
You know what's best about this
We
episode?
prefer to be called repeat offenders.
Repeat offenders.
I'm with you, Jim. I like that
Yeah.
better.
Gold jacket, green jacket. Who gives it? All right. Anyway, we should have a 5-time jacket or whatever they do on SNL. What should we have, Mike?
I don't know, but my headphones looked weird there for a second. It was like all offset. Now I feel a little better.
I was gonna say, actually,
I was holding back on that, but you know,
your headphones look, and I was not, and that's where, yeah, yep. Anyway,
This is a family friendly show, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
okay, family friendly show.
Mike will be in silence the rest of the show for that reason.
Oh yeah, this is all you're going to see. Like, just that's it. Just muting.
I love it. All right. So for all of you who are repeat offenders and you come to watch and hang out with us on every other Tuesday night here at Taylor Primetime, for the past few episodes, we've been asking our friend Chad, also known as Chat GPT, to write the intro descriptions for our guests. So we did that again. We asked Chad, and we're going to start with Jim Kirlin, our editorial director up here. But this time, instead of asking it to make it a party, we asked it to make it Snoop Dogg. Now, I'm not going to act like Snoop Dogg because I do not do a good Snoop Dogg impersonation. However, if you could imagine my voice sounding like Snoop Dogg, this is what Snoop would have to say about Jim Kirlin. Who's Jim Kirlin? Who's that smooth cat at Taylor Guitars? It's your boy Jim Kirlin, the lyrical wordsmith behind Wood&Steel Mag. Taylor's Groove. That's what you are, Jim. You're Taylor's Groove. Taylor's groove-filled journal with all the players and the strummers in the game. The lowdown, Snoop style. Editorial director extraordinaire. Jim's the boss of the pen game. Dropping knowledge on new guitars, legendary tone woods, and the vibe behind Taylor's slickest axes. I had to slow down and say that. You know where that was going to go. You dig?
Good call.
Every issue of Wood&Steel got his fingerprint on it. Smooth like a polished mahogany top.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. Okay. The voice of the Taylor fam. Oh. Whether he's telling stories about Bob Taylor
There's more.
or giving there's more.
oh, but wait, there's more.
Yeah, wait, there's more. Or giving props to the luthiers. Jim keeps it real. He's out there painting pictures with words, turning tone into poetry.
Oh my
Product hype man. Jim ain't just tipping.
typing.
Huh? No.
Typing.
It is typing. Hold on.
Yeah.
Typing. Jim ain't just, sorry, I got a thing here.
Are we officially off the rails now? Or?
Jim ain't just typing. He's out there bringing the fire when new guitars drop. When the Builder's Edition and the American Dream Series came out, guess who was there telling the tale? That's right, your boy Jim K. In Jim's world, every guitar got sold. From the 314 CE to the 814 CE. He writes like every fret got a heartbeat. I like that one. Every fret got a heartbeat. That could be a song.
I'm going to steal that one. I'm stealing that one.
That could be a
If
song.
ChatGPT can do that. I'm stealing it too.
Whether it's in a bedroom, whether it's a bedroom jam or a main stage throwdown, he makes you feel the music before you even strum. If Jim had a mic moment, guitars ain't just wood and wire. They're storytellers, baby. And I'm here to narrate the magic. That's good. That's good. What do you think, Jim?
If I were to prompt it, I would have said, do it in 50 words. That's the beauty of ChatGPT.
Okay. Well, then let's see.
I'll take it.
Let's see what Rob's has to say.
Can we do it in 20 words?
No.
You can do
Yeah,
it.
remember, I got the Rob rap.
Oh, you do got the Rob rap. So you do that in a second. I'll do this real quick. Rob's isn't that long. Well, wait. But wait.
No, Rob's is long.
Wait, there's more. Okay, ready? Who's Rob Magargal, you ask? He's a service network manager at Taylor Guitars, a.k.a. the Guitar Whisperer. Also, Terry Myers was the Guitar Whisperer, so yes. Chat GPT.
Well,
and
we're side by side.
So could you be the
decades.
You could be the Guitar Whisperer Junior?
He
hired you.
I'm the Guitar Whisperer
part two.
Junior.
Okay.
No cheese.
The Tone Tech, the Doctor of Dreadnoughts. Been rocking with Taylor since way back in the early 90s. Why he's the life of the guitar party? The Guitar Care King. Rob don't just fix guitars, he blesses them. That's true. That's great. From humidity hacks.
That might be going a little heavy, but
okay. From humidity hacks to string swaps, he's the guy making sure your Taylor stays fresh and fiery. Who wrote this? This is awesome. He's dropped mad knowledge in vids, mags, and even the Holy Grail itself, Wood&Steel. Straight out of El Cajon, Rob's been in Taylor videos showing you how to pamper your axe. Say that slowly. How to pamper your axe like it's royalty. Need a setup, humidity tips, pro string changes? He's got you. He's like Bob Ross with the fretboards and truss rods. Oh. All right. Backstage VIP, your guitar glow up. Taylor service centers around the world. Rob keeps them running tighter than a fresh set of D'Addario. You see how I switched that, Mike? It wrote it. I didn't write it. Okay. Whether it's a busted bridge or a tired top, he makes sure every Taylor gets VIP treatment. Rob's Guitar Care playlist. Smooth by Santana and Rob Thomas, because your setup should be that smooth. Fix You by Coldplay, Rob's unofficial anthem. Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, like your guitar's finish after a humidifier session. Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake. How You Feel After a Fresh String Change. Respect by Aretha Franklin. What your Taylor gets after Rob's done with it. Oh, respect, I see. Quote of the night. Care for your guitar like you care for your ride. Clean it, tune it, and don't leave it out in the rain. Rob, the fretboard fixer, Magargal. So next time
he's the fretboard fixer and the guitar whisperer.
Yes. So next time your guitar feels funky and not in a good way, channel your inner Rob, put on the tunes, grab your tools, and give that beauty a strum.
Wow.
Wow. That's woof. Oh man.
Whoa, that was wild. All right, everybody, what are you listening to?
One.
Rob, what have you been listening to lately?
Well, I've been listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin, like that's nothing new, but unfortunately I have. I've been also listening to a lot of Guess Who. I'm a big Burt Cummings fan. Loved his voice, and they're coming to San Diego. I just saw BTO last year, and they did a ton of Guess Who stuff. Well, I guess you call it BTO, but it was really just Randy Bachman. They did a ton of Guess Who, and now I guess they're going to go out on tour, and Cummings going to sing. So I'm probably going to have to go, but I've been listening to a lot of that too. He's always been in like top 5 voices for me. So
that's awesome. Jim, what are you listening to?
I've been kind of all over the map lately, but one band that I got into a little bit, I'm kind of dipping into the catalog, which I've been aware of this band for a while, but I really had to listen to them, and it's King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Oh, yes.
Those guys are really awesome.
Yeah.
And I knew they were prolific because I feel like every time I
yeah.
turn around, they release another. By the time we end this discussion, they will have released another album.
Yeah.
I looked it up. I think they've actually released 25 albums in 15 years.
Yeah.
But they're like,
I thought it was more.
But they're amazing musicians. They're like genre chameleons. Like every record is like they just take on a different form, and it's fun stuff. I mean, I think they get kind of lumped into the jam band category sometimes, and that's not necessarily my thing, but they're amazing. So I've been digging out lately.
They also package all their vinyl in like brown paper bags.
In brown paper bags. Yeah, that's my favorite part.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
That's like
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good one, Jim. Mike, what have you been listening to?
Recently there was a sale on some websites and for vinyl, of course, and a couple of the Who albums from Abbey Road Studios cut at 45 RPM or cut half speed. You play it back at 45 RPM. And they sound incredible. It was, I picked up Who's Next and Tommy. Now I've had those albums for years as it was, but these versions of them sound really, really good. And Tommy especially sounds fantastic. So if you happen to be out and about and you see the new reissue of Tommy, the Abbey Road mastered and recut at half speed version, pick it up. It sounds great. It's amazing. And of course, I mean, they're both great albums to begin with. Both of them are pretty much bulletproof. You can listen to them, beginning to end without, skip this one. You don't do that on either of them, especially Who's Next.
You keep those going. Who's Next is amazing.
Yeah. So that's what I'm listening to.
Huh. Well,
what are you listening to, Jay?
Oh boy, I just realized that Jordan set me up for failure. Okay. What have I been listening to? If you really know Sublime, then you've heard Pool Shark, the acoustic version. Not the overproduced punk blitz, but the raw 1-minute heartbreaker of that song that Bradley laid down like a last day on earth confessional. It's stripped to the bone, no dub, no ska, just a man unraveling. This isn't a backyard party, Brad. This is the ghost beneath the grin. While casuals are still looping Santeria, real fans know this is where the soul bleeds through. It's Sublime at its most uncomfortable, honest, and if it doesn't gut punch you, you're not listening hard enough.
I think we're relying too much on AI these days.
Actually, no. So for the past 2 weeks...
I really thought he wrote that.
No, Jordan actually wrote that.
Did he really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Through AI.
No, he wrote that. He also wrote the Dave Matthews thing last week. Anyway, all right, let's do a little segment of this or that.
Yeah, this or that. We got lots of questions. We got lots of them.
All right, so...
This is or thaters.
How do you want to do this, Mike? I do one, you do one?
Yeah, we'll just go back and forth. Yeah.
All right, you want to start with Jim?
I'll start with Jim.
All right, we'll start with Jim. Check this out.
I'm ready.
All right.
Jim, here we go.
Jim, this or... Now, by the way, the rules are you need to choose one or the other. It's not like a tie. I play the game wrong because people ask me Star Wars or Star Trek, and I can't answer it. So I failed.
Okay.
But these are things that you can answer.
Okay.
Stand-up comedy or sketch comedy?
I got to pick one over the other, huh?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go strength in numbers sketch comedy.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's hard because I love stand up.
Yeah.
But I love sketch comedy too. So I'm going strength in numbers.
Sketch comedy's got the air. I get it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Active voice or passive voice?
Active voice, man. That's how you make stuff flow. It pops. You got always active voice. Always.
All right. Mike.
This one I know firsthand.
I love this one. This one's so good.
Except for me, it's different medium. But correct someone's text or suffer in silence.
I cut people slack with text because like it's already like it's built for shortcuts anyway. I gave that up. There's no anxiety on my end there. What does get me is when people take their text shortcuts and they put it into email and they don't kind of know how to communicate professionally in email. But
fair.
Text is text. I'm fine with whatever text.
All right.
All right. En dash or hyphen?
Well, they're two different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
see what happens when Jordan writes these?
It's about, I mean, it's, well, what the question should have been N dash or M dash.
That's what I told him. See, he's fired.
And I would go M dash.
M dash.
A little bit longer, a little bit more.
See,
get a little more bang for your buck.
See, part of that, Mike, was him not suffering in silence. Do you see what that? He did correct.
Yes.
The this or that, which was fantastic. All right, go.
I see now this one. Oxford comma or no Oxford comma?
As a general rule, if I'm going to pick it, I'm going to say no Oxford comma.
Oh,
okay.
That's kind of my standard, but sometimes you need it. It's nuanced, but I'm going to go no Oxford comma.
All right.
I love it. Books or movies?
I'm going to say books. If it were books or series, that would be a little bit more difficult because a movie, you've got 2 or 3 hours to tell the story. Series, you've got like hours to unfold the story. I think that's a more even balanced comparison, but I'm going to go books.
Fair.
I got to honor the craft, the writing craft.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any more, Mike, for him?
Oh, yeah.
Go for it. Ask him a couple.
So, well, reading books or audiobooks?
Reading books. I definitely read more books. I listen to more podcasts.
Yeah.
I think I'm open to audiobooks, but I don't do enough long driving. That's where I think like an audiobook would be good for me. Like podcasts, it's like if I'm working out, like I got an hour. So yeah, for my life, I'd go reading, listening to podcasts.
Come out on the road for a week with me. You'll listen to All right. I got one more for you really quick. Dictionary or thesaurus?
I'm gonna go thesaurus.
Yeah.
I feel like I lean that way more. I'm okay with most words or like, the ones that I use. But more often than not, especially in writing things that can sometimes feel a little bit repetitive, you have to find fresh ways of talking about stuff. So thesaurus definitely comes in handy.
I can only imagine all the stories you've written here at Taylor, how many times you've had to break out the thesaurus. I mean, geez, there's only a few ways you can say a few things.
Well, and sometimes it's a syllable thing too. It's like because of flow, right? You want sometimes fewer syllables are better. So what's a word that's fewer syllables that gets the same idea across? So the writing.
All right.
Boring anyway.
Rob's turn. Rob.
Okay.
Why don't you start off with Rob?
All right. Which is more annoying, buzzing string or intonation being off?
Oh, intonation, 100%. Buzzing strings, I can totally get around that. That doesn't bug me at all.
Yeah,
but
up
intonation, the bad tuning, things like that. Yeah, that's gonna just like I'm out. See it.
Yeah. Just turn up the distortion. That's what I say.
Yeah, but you're still out of tune.
Out
of tune.
This one
you just have great sustain while you're out of tune.
Yeah, right.
This one I think we know the answer to. Coated strings or non-coated strings?
Well, I don't sweat much, so I'm going to go non-coated.
Okay.
I've seen you sweat quite a bit.
Yeah.
All right. I like this one. Bass fishing or trout fishing?
Is that a real question?
I didn't. Yeah, it is a real question.
It's a question that
I
somebody
love
wrote.
both of them because I don't want to slack on any of the fishermen, but I'm definitely a bass fisherman.
Yeah.
This isn't on this list, but bass or bass?
No.
Well played, sir.
If you had to choose
No.
between the bass or the bass.
Yeah.
I'm going with the bass, but I will tell you that I've been confused at times reading things where I'm like, is that bass or bass? And then you got to read, okay, no.
For content.
Why is he slapping the bass?
Yeah.
Exactly. Let's see. All right. So I'll read one from the list, actually. Live bait or artificial?
Oh, artificial. But live bait can be really fun with the right group of people. Live bait can be really fun. But
With
I'm really
Yeah, you throw
With
it at
the
them and you
right
put it in
group
the
of
back of their shirt.
people.
Dare them to swallow it. Yeah.
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 Right.
Put
group
it
of
in their
people.
shot of tequila.
No, I mean,
All right.
there's times when live bait fishing can be a lot of fun. But definitely, if I'm choosing, I'm going artificial.
All right. Catch and cook or catch and release.
Yes.
All right. We'll take it. Go for it, Mike.
Fresh wood smell or river breeze?
What the hell is that?
I didn't write that one.
I didn't write it either.
You know what?
Good.
I'm asking you a different one.
Okay.
Rush or Led Zeppelin? I know the answer, but
Oh
This is for both.
yeah, this is
Jim,
for
too.
both.
man. Okay, I've got to go Led Zeppelin, but you're talking about honestly my two favorite groups that are just, I mean, really, those two, Alex Lifeson and Jimmy Page. It's like growing up, but I got to go Led Zeppelin.
Jim?
To me, yeah, I know the answer. I got a Rush poster on the wall in my office, and my ringtone on my phone is Kashmir. I'm gonna say Zeppelin because without Zeppelin, there might not be a Rush.
Yep.
True. Truth. And that's it. I don't have
That's
any
it.
others.
That's it.
That was a good this or that.
Oh, that was a good this or that. All right, ladies
that's
and
the
gentlemen.
end of this or that. Da 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 da.
Da 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 da. This episode of Taylor Primetime has been brought to you by the Gold Label 814E Koa SB and Natural. How's that? Check this out. Got a couple of videos for you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Ford. I work at Taylor Guitars in the neck department, and I'm the final carver. My staff picks is the 814 Gold Label. It's got a really full and rich sound to it, and it's got a really neat peg head shape. That's my staff pick.
It's official. That's my new favorite Koa guitar that we make.
Can I mention
awesome.
something?
Yeah.
So I was just at a work event, Midwest area, and I got to hear some of our guitars in like a professional setting, on a really nice stage with a high-end gear, microphones in front of them, no pickups, no amps, just the guitars. We very rarely, I don't know if people understand this at Taylor, we very rarely get to hear our own guitars in that type of environment.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, the gold label was ridiculous. I was just literally blown away. I was blown away by it. And that was, it was strikingly amazing. Just to throw that out there.
They're really good. The audience has heard me talk about how good they are in front of a microphone as well. They're remarkable. I keep saying it this way, Rob. I don't know if you experienced this, but I'll ask. The way I kind of describe it is the low end is so there and bold and present, but it's out of the way.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
It's the thing that some bigger body guitars, they get that woofiness in the low end, and you start to EQ and you're trying to shift, and sometimes you're moving the guitar around or moving the mic around, making sure that it tries to find the sweetest spot.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just sweet. The low end is there, and the trebles are still warm. Like it's just a brilliant guitar. Anyway,
what was great for me, Jay, is there were two different players playing at the same time, both playing gold label. So two different style players, and both of them sounded killer.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, it wasn't like one person, just killing it. It was two different players.
Yeah, I love them. They're so great. So that's the exciting part of this episode. This episode's called The Pursuit of Playability. One of the reasons we have Jim on is because he penned the Wood&Steel story that explores that Taylor Guitars has always set out to make the most playable guitars in the world. We talk about this, Jim. I talk about this on the factory tour all the time. Bob wanted to win at one thing, really, and that was how a guitar felt, right? Sound is subjective. You can't look. We just had a this or that about Zeppelin or Rush, right? You wouldn't have Zeppelin. You wouldn't have Rush without Zeppelin. Some people could argue that Zeppelin or Rush thing, but there's differences. There's nuances between sound, but feel was something that was very important to us, and we couldn't, do that without game-changing innovations. One of which we're really going to dive into tonight, and with the action control neck. And we're so thrilled to have Rob here to help navigate the action control neck, show us how it works. I've got some video clips, so we're going to dive into that. But Jim, what is this whole new Wood&Steel story idea? Let's start there.
Yeah, what is this thing you speak of? So this is Wood&Steel stories. So I think a lot of folks watching are probably fans of Wood&Steel or have known Wood&Steel from over the years. It started back in 94. It was something that Bob and Kurt started to create a line of communication directly with customers. And it has evolved over the decades. It was originally on newsprint, then it went to nicer paper, and then at a certain point we evolved it to include a digital component to it. And it was kind of for a while it was like digital and print, and then we shifted it exclusively to digital. And this is kind of just the next step forward. I think we got to a point where we realized that a digital magazine just isn't quite the same as an analog print, tangible, tactile magazine, right? And so while we tried to deliver a lot of the same information, we got comments from folks, we're kind of competing with ourselves, because guess what? We have a website where we do other written forms of storytelling and content and things like that. And we also had people who said, look, I work on a computer all day. I don't necessarily want to read a whole magazine on a tablet or on my phone or whatever. And so, but at the same time, we love deep dive storytelling. We love long form. We're always a fan of it, regardless of how technology and communication platforms evolve. We know that despite the short form stuff, people want rich storytelling. And I think we love sharing that with Taylor enthusiasts. And that's always been, I think, part of the connection that we strive to make with folks, and giving them an inside look into what we do at the factory, some of the sustainability initiatives, what artists are doing and how they're using it. So we thought, well, let's retain that, but let's streamline things. So Wood&Steel Stories is, instead of trying to create an entire magazine, it's a single long form story. So we're really going to try to create a cadence where we present a story long form in a regular cadence. We're kind of just launching the first one, so we'll figure out, what the cadence is. Maybe quarterly to start, and I think it'd be nice to get to monthly, that kind of a thing. But we've looked around. I've always liked what Patagonia Stories has done, like on their website. It gives it's a way to do combine kind of long form writing with photography and other. Some of their stories are documentaries. And so Jay, you and I have talked about that a little bit. Like, it doesn't have to be a long article. It could be a little bit of writing, but it's really setting up a 20-minute documentary that we create. If we're following an artist around, or we're like following a Taylor guitar through, a day in the life of a Taylor, or, just offering these interesting perspectives. So that's kind of the idea behind it, and continuing to evolve that. And then for this first story, we thought, well, what makes sense? What do we want to talk about? And as you said, playability is a theme that continues to be, it never goes out of style, right?
No.
It's our calling card. It's still that thing that kind of sets us apart. And then on top of that, it just so happens that earlier this year, we introduced the Gold Label collection, and we talked about this whole new sound, and we did talk about the neck a little bit. But what was interesting was we talked about the neck joint. We talked about this long tenon neck and the way that it couples with the body and helps contribute to this new voice that we're trying to create. What was interesting, though, was hidden inside the neck was another really super cool design component that we really didn't talk about. I mean, we talked about it with dealers at NAMM, talked about it with some influencers, but it was kind of a mum's the word thing initially, because we didn't want to overshadow the tonal goodness of this guitar. I mean, it was really, we would otherwise be competing with ourselves. And I think it's so consequential, this innovation in the neck, in terms of what it brings to adjustability, which we're going to get into with Rob. We thought, well, we'll just mention that it does bring a little bit more micro adjustability to the equation, but let's talk about the sound of the guitars.
True.
Let that breathe a little bit, and then we'll come back and then we can revisit this. And we also didn't want this to seem like a parlor trick, like a cheap little thing that just, was kind of gimmicky. We wanted to give it its own space to really talk about it. And so that's kind of what we're starting to do now.
Yeah, it's first of all, well done on the story. We'll link it here in the comments after the show. The story is fantastic, and I like the idea. I totally hear the argument. I really do. I like magazines too. I think we all like magazines. I mean, you asked a this or that question, Mike, audiobooks or real books. We like to flip pages. Sometimes I saw this comment is brilliant. Neil wrote, electronic because we live in an RV and space is premium. Like that's also true. I think about my in-laws who live in an RV, or, my mom totally enjoys just flipping on her Kindle, which is in between. You know what I mean? She's not listening to books, but I loved Wood&Steel. I thought it was, I don't always think that people understand the effort that Jim and his entire team would put into putting a magazine together. It's not an easy task. And then we moved into the digital world, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but sometimes it seemed like digital was harder.
Well, it is in some respects. In some respects, it's easier because you can publish it, and then you can tweak it, afterwards if you want to, because it's digital, right?
Yeah.
But I think, thanks for saying that. I mean, I think it's a labor of love. We love
totally.
it. But I think one of the things that we liked about it too is that when you would get a magazine, whether it's Wood&Steel or any magazine, right, that's focused on an interest that you have, you get it, and you might not read everything at one time, but you're gonna maybe you will. But you're going to that. You're going to put it on your coffee table. It's going to be sitting around. Someone who comes over to your house is going to check it out. So I think the challenge with digital stuff is you get a story pushed to you, and then if you don't read it, then you maybe you save it for later and you read it. But then the content machine just keeps churning out stuff, and so it's so easy to get for stuff to get lost in the shuffle. And there's something really beautifully disruptive about about a magazine. But I think we're going to do a better job, I think, of trying to promote some of the stories that we do digitally, take the goodness of a long form story and, you know, have people come on and talk about it and, you know, and kind of promote it in other ways. And again, make it interesting so it's not just reading. You do get some of the elements you can't get from a magazine article. You get the video content. You can hear a guitar being played, all that kind of good stuff. You know?
Without a QR code scan, that's for sure. So let's dive into the episode, Let's dive into the story. What a perfect, again, as we spoke about it, it's a timely story for our Gold Label collection that we recently launched. The Action Control neck. Let's dive into that. Jim, where did you start with the story when you were writing it?
I mean, I think the thing is, I think we wanted to establish some context because, you know, we wanted to go back to the beginning. I mean, even before Taylor Guitars, because really very early on, Bob stumbled into making a playable acoustic guitar neck. And so I think I wanted to go back that far because I wanted people to understand that acoustic guitars used to be really, really hard to play. You know, and it's something that we take playability for granted nowadays, but we tap into that, and Bob and Kurt talk about it. We have a clip in there, I think, from the historical podcast that you did last year. That was really awesome. We got so many great insights from those guys. But you know, I think Kurt talks about this might even go back to the American Dream before Taylor, where people would buy a new guitar, but then they would bring it into the American Dream to have them reshape the neck because the playability was suspect, right? And so I wanted people to appreciate. And I wanted it to, I think sometimes people think that we pat ourselves on the back a lot, you know, about our innovations and the things that we've done. And I think there was something really honest about the story of Bob kind of intuitively just making a guitar neck skinny because he didn't know any better. He didn't know what he was supposed to do. He kind of, you know, he had that he saw some Echo 12-string acoustic guitar in a shop, and that was really all he had to reference. He didn't know about Martin. He didn't know about other guitars. He'd read one book, and you know, people would come up to him and, you know, in the shop and say, "Man, you're making your necks real skinny," and he'd be like, "I am." Like he didn't even know. So I think there was something really cool about the honesty of Bob, just kind of following his instincts as a fledgling builder. And I think that there was a freshness to that. Like we've talked about Bob having a blank slate to work from because he didn't know what the rules were. And it was so that I thought that was kind of an interesting way in. And then, you know, I kind of broke it into 3 acts. There was that phase of like the early skinny necks, and what a game changer it was. How that really became a calling card when Kurt would drive around to dealers up in LA and people were like, "Man, these things really play well." And electric guitar players all of a sudden could play an acoustic guitar, but where before they couldn't unless they tuned it way down. And so we get into a little bit of that. And then Act 2, if it's a 3-act play, which I kind of built it into a 3-act story, Act 2 is the NT neck and Bob, what a game changer that was. So I think I wanted to speak to the ongoing, the continuous improvement that's part of our culture. You know, there's always been that push. And this is where I think what one cool thing about Rob, I want to get Rob to chime in because, you know, Rob, you came to us in like 86-ish, right? So you came.
No, I came at the beginning of the 90s.
Early 90s. Okay. But we were still doing the original, you know, version of the neck where we still glued the fretboard.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a bolt-on, but it was a glued fretboard. So you were there for that, and then into the transition to the NT neck. So, I mean, what's your recollection of the necks and how things were changing when you encountered them with Taylor?
Well, when I first started, of course, we were doing the glued fingerboard. I mean, even just to get, we would pre-radius the board on a shaper. I mean, it's in a way, it was almost caveman guitar. We would put the neck into that shaper jig and just do a rough cut of the radius. We would glue the neck on, set the neck angle and glue it. And then we'd have to finish out our sand out. We'd have to complete it, get our radius correct, get our angle. If we missed it a hair, we could fix it in our sand out. Then we would do our end-lace fretting. I mean, we were, you know, really, it was harder to build a guitar back then. Yeah. Because of just the skills that you needed to have to be able to complete it.
You know what's also interesting now that I think about the time that you arrived, when we talk about the NT neck came at the end of the 90s, but what
Mhm.
started the 90s, as you know, was CNC machines,
Yes.
right? And so like
I got there right as the first one showed up.
So that was a game changer right there. Like, what was your recollection of seeing those, Bob, kind of start to figure out what a CNC machine could do and how that
Okay.
could change the game?
I have a great CNC story for you then. Okay. I'm there on a Saturday. We all had keys back then. Okay. There was no real working hours. You came in, you did your, like I said, we were almost individuals working at Taylor. It was almost, even though we were a small production team, it seemed a little bit like the American Dream days, where it's like you would come in and build your guitars. Well, the bodies and necks were there. All I had to do was come in and grab my 3 or 4 and build them. So if I came in at 5 a.m, I'd be gone by 1:30 and I'd be going fishing for the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay. So it worked out great. However, but the Fidal, this was cool. So I'm there on a Saturday working. I'm doing repairs at a music store and I'm getting ready to route the nut for a Floyd Rose. So I had to take the nut out of a Fender neck and I'm chucking it up in a vise. I'm getting all my jigs ready to do this pass. And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm getting ready to cut this nut area for the Floyd." He goes, "Oh, let's put it on the Fidal." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, let's go do it." So I take it off my bench and we run out to the Fidal. We got a big vise in the Fidal. We set it in there. We get it all done. We get it leveled up, clean, hand wind the thing down. It's coming down. He gets the right cutter in there. We line it up and he presses the button and it goes, meow. That was it. And it was done. And he looked at me. He's like, "That was cool. That was cool." I'm like, well, it helped me for sure because I had a perfectly clean cut, for the my nut to sit down on top of. But I mean, though, that's what it was back then. We were just learning. I think they did bridges at first was the very first thing. The new shape of a bridge that Larry Breedlove designed. So, I mean, here's another funny story about that. If you ever saw my guitar from 1991 and whoever prepped that bridge, and it wasn't me because I did not build that guitar, I don't have any bridge wings. They're like these little wafers. They're really thin, and the center of my bridge is really tall. So when the Fidal came about, Larry was able to have this thing programmed to make our bridge exactly as it's supposed to be. So when we prepped them, they all looked the same. So that's another thing that the Fidal helped us with also is that you'd get a part and then you didn't wreck it. You were able to.
Did it make things more consistent too, where you had a neck and a body and there was they became more compatible and almost interchangeable. Well,
that was a few years down the road, but yes, okay.
Yeah,
that was a few years down the road. So early stuff when we were doing handset necks, they weren't compatible. This neck, after I set it, did not work on another guitar, and that body would not work with another neck unless you just started from scratch again and then redid that neck to fit whatever body that was. Because it's important to understand that when the body department team, if they've got the guitar on the belt sander and they're doing the sides, when they come around to the top, if they leaned that guitar just a hair forward or backwards, that's the difference of maybe 3 or 4 thousandths in what's going on and where the heel's going to put. So now I have to change that in the heel by hand to get my relationship to the radius of the top of the body. So each one was its own. Where it really got compatible, is where you're saying, is when we did the NT. Okay, when that came about, then it was like, whoa, the accuracy of everything mattered. The way the necks were done, the way the bodies were done, because now you're trying to put these things together into a pocket. And I remember Bob saying it's like an inlay, and it is. It really is. It's like an inlay, but it's a 3-dimensional inlay. That was really great to I love hearing Bob do these videos, and sometimes we get to ask him questions because you get to hear his mindset about that. But hearing it as a 3-dimensional inlay versus just, dropping a piece of pearl into a fretboard was really good. So you have
that's something
in the neck.
Bob talks about that a lot. Like we talk about the NT neck, but it really was the NT guitar because, like you say, the body had to be, the geometry of that had to be just as precise because there was almost no room for error.
There wasn't. I mean, and then so now you have this body that's got the right radius. It's got all its dimensions are correct, all of its angles, and you have this neck. Now the person has to put it into this pedal correctly and make sure that that pocket is cut correctly so that the shim system can work within the process of this guitar's top and how it's going to pull and what it's going to do. So, I mean, this was a major endeavor. The math that was involved had to have been crazy for them to figure out, honestly. Because we were shooting for back then we had like -20 to 0 and 0 to +20 for our shims. Okay. We were always shooting for like that -2 to +4, knowing that this could go anywhere in the world. If it dried out a hair, we could lower it. If it puffed up a little bit, we could raise it. So that really had to do with the person in the pedal too. So you've got the pedal operator, the bodybuilders, the neck guys, all the design. It was over the top crazy. And I remember when we switched, I remember people telling us, you're just doing this to make a cheaper guitar. I started laughing.
Dude, yeah, no, So let's talk to, can I have ask a couple of clarifying questions? So
Sure.
This graphic right here is a typical traditional dovetail joint. And you see the neck and the heel block. That's a dovetail joint. You hear the argument for that all the time. And then on the right, you have a also interestingly traditional mortise and tenon joint. Right?
Yeah, it's very similar to the dovetail that just bolted.
Right. Okay. So why did first of all, why did Bob not just do a dovetail? Do we know?
I think he started back. I believe this is correct. I think he repaired a lot of people's guitars.
Yeah.
And that he would actually do the repair hack of taking a thin blade and cutting down the body and through the heel and then bolting from the heel block and pulling the neck angle up.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, now you wouldn't do that to say maybe it was a higher end guitar, a Martin or something like that. You would steam it off and do it. But some of the Echo, the lesser branded guitars that were less expensive, you could experiment with that and go, wow, this is a good thing. So now once you do that, and now you have a mortise tenon and you see a dovetail. I mean, Bob in his brain, I couldn't imagine what was going through. He's like, I'm just going to bolt this thing on. Well, what am I doing? Why am I thinking of like gluing something? I'll glue the fingerboard, but I'm gonna bolt this thing together.
Hey, Jay, do you have that? There's another photo we run in the store. I don't know if you have it. It's a mortise and tenon that is also a bolt-on. So that was kind of a transition.
No, this is the only one. This is the only one I got. Yeah. I didn't. We didn't.
It's in your story though, Jim.
It's in your story.
It's a great photo in the story.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So then fast forward to 1999 when we I have that year right when we released the NT new technology neck, now known as the Taylor neck.
I'm going to correct you guys on something on that, and nobody knows this.
I
don't think anyone realizes we actually started it in '98.
On some artist guitars,
one guitar a day. And we never told anyone.
Oh, really?
We had to prove the concept.
Oh.
So we know it's okay. We know it's good, but we have to prove it. So we would do one guitar a day and just put it out there. See how it goes through production. See how it goes through assembly. How the dealers didn't know. There was a sticker on it. No one could tell. The first ones didn't even have an extension bolt. They had a floating extension that fit down into its pocket, but there was no bolt.
That's so scary.
Well, actually, no. Actually, it's not. There's actually companies out there that bolt the neck on the guitar, and there's nothing on the extension. It's just a chunk of wood in there, and it's sitting down. If it's solid, it's solid. It's nice. I prefer ours, honestly, having it fully bolted like that. But in those days back then, if you looked inside our classic Taylor and you looked inside one of the very first NTs, you couldn't tell the difference because there was no extension bolt. So we could get it out there and figure out what we're doing. And then by doing that, we realized, hey, we should have an extension bolt in this because that's really helping us set the angle and keeping it stable. So that was in 98, but 99 is when that's when that big push hit. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm trying, Jim, to actually, I found that photo, and I'm going to try and add it real quick so that I can pull it up. So then let's fast forward back to the NT, and you were talking about the Fadal work.
Yes.
And I'm thinking you're meaning the pocket and
everything.
Yeah.
The shaping of the neck, the pocket for the heel and the extension. You got extension on the top here and the heel. That was huge. But then the Fadal also carved the back of the necks. So then now you're getting this amazing Bob Taylor version of how a neck feels. Now, there's even more to it than that. It comes down to how much fingerboard radius is taken off. So how much fingerboard is remaining to have the radius with the back of the neck will determine how thick and chunky it is. So the NT neck became the Bob Taylor neck. Because back when I was doing my 4 guitars and say we were in assembly and I was training everyone for that 10-year period, Bob could come around the room and without anyone in the room, he would go, those are Rob's guitars, those are Terry's guitars, those are Eric's guitars. He knew how I beveled my frets. He knew how Terry's nut work was. He knew how all of these things were. So in the end, he's like, they say Taylor. They say Taylor guitars. But in the end, my 4 were mine. But my stamp was on them. How much fingerboard I took off when I sanded out versus Terry or versus Eric. How I cut the nut, how I did my saddles. So as that NT came along, it really became a Taylor guitar. As great as our guitars were back then, they're great. I still have mine. They're not to the level, honestly, of what happened when we switched over and did that fully bolted neck. That just became this over the top guitar.
So real quick, I was able to clip this, and it's going to look funny on the screen, but it's what I could do real quick during the show. So this is what Jim was talking about, that mortise and tenon with the bolts. And so this paddle up here that was glued onto the body of the guitar, you can kind of see up by whomever's thumb that is, and then bolted on. Yeah. So this is traditional. This is what Bob did.
Yes. So
then,
if you look at the heel, if you look at the heel, if you don't look at the tenon part and you just look at the heel, to set that angle, you can do 2 different things. You could try to get it close and glue the fretboard down. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or you could put it on there and clamp the fretboard to the body. And then what you're doing is with sandpaper up underneath, very similar to how you would do a dovetail, you're pulling on either side of that heel with the papers. And then that's moving your neck back and it's moving it side to side. It's allowing you to hand fit the neck. Huh. And then once it's done, you would bolt it and then glue the fretboard.
Well, then that's fast forward. We're here. Everyone wants to know what we're talking about. So we have the spirit of innovation. Jim writes it brilliantly in the story. So you got to read it. Again, I'll link it in the comments after the show. But fast forward into the new era of neck design, the action control neck. Who wants to start walking us through that? Jim, let's hear you elegantly tell us the story. And Rob, you can tell us the technical stuff.
I'll just set the table for Rob, and I'll let Rob take it. He can explain it. But I think one of the benefits of that NT neck was the ability to micro adjust the neck angle, right? So see that pocket, and remember the paddle portion of that neck. Now you, as Rob explained before, you can inset or inlay that neck in place so that the fingerboard extension isn't glued to the top, right? So it was more stable. And with those spacers, that allowed you to swap them out if you needed to. So over the course of a guitar's life, if you needed to make an adjustment. I think one of the key things that I wanted to get across was whether it's the NT neck, which we still use on most of our guitars, or this action control neck we're about to talk about. It's the idea that a guitar will change over its life. That at some point, as the guitar settles into its environment, as the wood kind of relaxes, with the string tension on it, as it goes through different seasonal cycles, as it goes around the world, whatever it does, it's going to change on a molecular level. It's not a flaw or a defect. It's just the nature of organic material. And when Bob first was building Interest, he was thinking about serviceability. How can you deal with that over time? How do you continue to keep that guitar playing in an optimized way? And his NT neck was a wonderful solution to make that easier. Now, really, Andy sort of inherited that. And like I said, we're still using it. Andy kind of took it a step further. Rob, you want to pick it up from there and kind of talk about where it's kind of taking what the NT neck does and kind of taking it a step further? Because before, it was still largely something that a service tech would need to do. It was a lot less time than it would take to do a neck reset on a dovetail joint. That's for sure. But it was still something generally that you would have a service technician do. But maybe you can talk about your take on how this new action control neck really advances the NT.
Well, I think one of the biggest things to talk about, and we have to start with the NT. Okay, and Jim, you were mentioning, the service tech working on the guitar. It isn't that it's difficult to work on the NT. It technically, if you, on just a straight level, it's 3 bolts and 2 shims. Okay, where the difference comes in, and this is something I would explain to technicians when I'm training them at first. We're the only acoustic guitar company where we're taking the neck off and handing it to someone, or working with it. So you don't realize the weight of the neck when it's attached to the body. You don't realize how much a set of 12-string tuners adds to the weight of that neck when you go to take it off. So when we're talking about needing a service center to do the work, it's more about understanding how to handle these parts as individuals versus how to see a neck angle and how to put it back together. I mean, technically, if you had some type of critical thinking and skill level, you could take the neck off your guitar, and if you had the set of shims, you could go about putting it back together and probably be somewhat successful. But it obviously was better to have a technician do it. Now, with the gold label neck, this is just the next level, because technically it's still fully bolted. That extension piece is still bolted down, the same as it is with the standard Taylor neck. But what you have is the adjustability instant. It's on the fly if you need to. I mean, technically, once it's adjusted, you may never touch it again. However, if you wanted to, that ability is right there. I mean, I think in the article I mentioned going from, a strummer guitar to a finger stylus. It's like, it can happen that fast. And I know Andy was thinking about it for several years, just knowing what we have to do and what other manufacturers have to do when you think of guitars globally. You mentioned it, Jim. You're talking about the seasonal changes. We're talking about whether the guitar is going to swell a little bit in Costa Rica, but it's going to shrink a little bit in Norway. There's all of these factors that come into play. And what was that? What was the saying you guys said? Something about the frets are lightning, or the quote.
Each fret has a heartbeat or something.
Every fret has a heartbeat. Well, I've always said that there's 20 frets on the guitar. You should be able to play all 20 frets.
Let's figure this out.
It shouldn't just be playing chords and you get up to the 4th fret. Okay. And a lot of times that's what happens with acoustic guitars. So with the NT, we could take it off into the shims. With this gold label now, I mean, honestly, it's truss rod adjustment correct. And you put that 1/4-inch wrench in there and a little tweak of that wrench, and you're back in business.
Time out.
It's remarkable.
It's that easy?
It's that easy.
Hold on. That easy? So easy that we want to show them a 1-30-second video.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I clipped a 1-30-second video going through the steps of the action control neck. Does everybody want to see it? I want to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Also, it's a little redundant because it's Mike and Rob.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, it's that video. It's us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's
I wasn't sure which video you're talking about.
I'm wearing a different shirt.
You are wearing a different shirt, but we'll be back in a minute 30.
So now we know how the action control neck matches up with the guitar, how it's constructed. Let's talk about the action controlling aspect of this neck.
Sure.
Now, there's an order of operations that goes along with this.
Yes, it's very important.
What would be that order of operations?
Well, I call it the big three. The first one is tune it to pitch. Now, at Taylor Guitars, we tune to A440, which is standard pitch. You'll see that on your digital tuner. However, if you tune a half a step down, let's say you tune open tuning, maybe you tune dadcat. Make sure the guitar is tuned to however you play. Secondly, number two, you want to make sure that your truss rod is adjusted properly.
Now, that's something we call neck relief.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that would be either a concave or convex curve
Yes.
to when you're looking down the fingerboard, as they say.
Absolutely.
So how important is that in this order of operations?
Well, it's one of the most important, actually, because without it, you can be really mixed up on what you're doing action-wise. You could have a poorly adjusted neck, and things can be too high or too low when really it was just a poor truss rod adjustment.
Great. And then the third, you said there's a big three.
There's the big three.
Now, what's the third of the big three?
Well, once you have the first and second done, now you go into the guitar and you can adjust the action of the instrument.
Now, when we say action, we're talking about the relative height of the strings to the fingerboard. Would that be correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is the last phase of the system.
And therefore, action control.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yay.
There's another clip that we'll share a video that will go up where you actually see Rob go in and twist. But there's a quarter. You take a quarter drive, quarter inch drive.
nut driver. Yeah.
It can be your truss rod wrench. However, if it's a truss rod wrench, you would loosen the strings after you tune to pitch, adjust the neck relief. Then you would loosen the strings and put your truss rod wrench in there, and you can adjust it. Rob uses a nice little tool that can kind of just a flexi. It's like a flexi carburetor screwdriver. You can just go, and it just adjusts. Micro adjustments go a long way.
Yeah, a quarter turn is quite a bit.
But that is literally how easy it is. I shot a video of Andy doing it with an iPhone just real quick because we had to send it to a tech, and it took Andy 34 seconds to do the entire thing. He tuned, he made sure the relief was right. It was a straight neck, so he didn't have to do anything. And then he put the wrench in there and went, and that was it. He lowered the action in no time. Pretty simple. How would you tune a guitar, Rob?
Well, like I tune a fish.
Really? Oh.
You're trying to set me up. I don't use a digital tuner unless I'm going on stage professionally.
We know what you use, Robin. We have evidence of this.
We have evidence.
How do you go in tuning a guitar?
Well, for me here at Taylor Guitars, I'm old school. I'm using a tuning fork. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit my tuning fork on the bench. I'm going to set it on the bridge. You hear the tone, and I'm going to match my high E to that tone. And then from that point, I'm going to tune it by ear.
Just because you use a tuning fork doesn't mean you're the coolest guy on the planet.
Well, okay, I'm one of them then. Being the coolest guy is way too much pressure.
But like you said in the meeting we had before we had earlier today, the pre-production meeting, you said, well, when you've tuned 5 million guitars or whatever it is at this point, you kind of get used to it and you fall into a habit that you've used since day one. And
yeah, we even see top technicians when they come to Taylor Guitar and we're working with them and they watch us tune a guitar and they're like, "You're done?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's done. It's tuned. Here, play it." Yeah. They can't believe how fast we can tune the knobs. But I think what they here's where people get where it mesmerizes them because they don't realize what's happening. We're tuning it before we even strike the note. Okay, so we're actually doing it in reverse because we know the tension that we put on the strings to begin with. We never brought them past where they're supposed to be. Then, honestly, we get a feel for how that tension is on the strings. I'm going real nerdy on this one. we get a feel for how the tension is. So once I get my high E, by the time I'm getting to strum the B, I've already turned that knob probably 4 times. And I'm at just a couple of times and I'm back there at B. And then I'm going to do to the G and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm moving the strings to tension before I've even struck them. So it's definitely in reverse from what most people would do. But after 5 million tunings of guitars, and how much tension you're putting on them yourself, you really start to you get it down.
So I was able to clip this photo from the story so you can kind of see what that looks like on the inside.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it. Sorry, it's a little awkward again in shape, but that's as simple as it is. There's a bolt in there. Rob uses a flexi screwdriver. Merp, turns it real quick. You like my sound effect? Merp.
I like it. I like it.
Merp is the actual noise the flexi driver does make it merp.
Merp. And then
and there's no heel label on that gold label. So when you look inside there and you see a bolt, you're supposed to. We didn't forget it. It's not like a not done guitar.
Yeah, it's not like you need to put a sticker over it after you're done adjusting it. The whole point is to have it there for you to adjust.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm going to speak up here.
Okay.
It is user serviceable.
100%.
But don't service it if you don't have to yourself. Go and be friends with your local tech. Have them show you how to do it. You're just better off because your tech may find other things that they could tweak on your guitar and improve the playing experience. And it's always good to be friends with your local luthier. So I encourage, and I know all of us here probably encourage, being able to walk into a store with it, have your adjustments done. You can do it yourself, but leaving it to a professional is not a bad thing.
I want to help the players here. This is something I used to do when I was really young, when I first started to understand guitar. Well, I didn't understand when I first started playing around with guitars. Understanding them, that came several years later. But what I wanted to do was, what do all these things do? What are all these Allen wrenches on my guitar? I've got 6 of them, 2 for each one of my 3 saddle pieces, but what do they do on my electric guitar? So I knew my guitar was playing okay. So I wrote down everything I did. So if I put the Allen wrench in and I turned it to the left twice, I went, okay, this Allen wrench to the left twice. Same one with the next one. So if I did get myself in a bind, if I did mess it up, I just reverse engineered and got myself right back where I was. So
this is your own undo button in real life.
So this can happen easily with this. You get your neck adjusted properly. And if you adjust that, you go, okay, well, I turned it a half a turn and my action's too low. Now what do I do? Well, you can reverse engineer that and just go back to where it was. And now maybe go a quarter of a turn. So it's easy to be able to do this. And I don't think anyone should be afraid of it. Just don't go at it just putting the wrench in there and turning it 6 times. Go at it methodically and understand what's in front of you and write down what you did. So if you do have to back yourself out, you can.
I just threw the link in the comments too, if you guys want to, after the show, look at this. Hey, there are a couple of questions I kind of want to, from the feed, I want to get to. So
okay.
Here's a great one from Matt. Once a neck adjustment has been made, typically is that the only time it will need to be done?
Good question. That depends. Okay. If that guitar pretty much stays in the same environment all the time, humidity levels are great, everything like that, and you kept the same gauge of strings on it, chances are maybe in 3 or 4 years, you may have to tweak it a little because of, just slight changes. So on that aspect, no. My guitars in my closet over here, central closet, everything stays beautiful. I don't have to touch them. Honestly, I don't touch them. Even when I go to restring them, I don't take my truss rod covers off. However, let's say you live somewhere with major seasonal changes. You may need to adjust that truss rod a couple times a year. because it's going to move and change. That top's going to shrink a little bit in the winter, maybe. Even though it's not dry, it settles a little bit. That means the neck's going to move too, because it's all attached. So things are going to change and move. So yeah, you may need to do a, double check that truss rod twice a year, summer, winter type situation.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, actually. Thanks for asking it, Matt.
Hope I didn't go too nerdy.
No, that was fantastic, Rob. The answer was there. It was brilliant. So, a situation. So I was a touring guitar tech, and there were times where I was just thinking about this. Has anybody? We're all in California. Has anybody gone to the Cal State Fullerton outdoor shows that they would do?
I can only imagine outdoor shows what you have to deal with.
Yeah. So there were times where we would do an outdoor show at noon at a college campus and then be in a venue at night. And so I was
guitar's totally going to change.
Totally going to change. So for acoustic gigs, this is brilliant. But
let's premise that though, Jay. When we say totally change, that could be the difference of just a couple thousandths in the truss rod adjustment.
A couple thousandths, right.
Yeah, so that's the difference of someone with a nice straight neck that was playing beautiful to it's buzzing just a hair. Yep. So now we just got to tweak it back to where it was. We're not talking it went from perfect to 25 thousandths of relief, by the evening.
Yeah. So it changes things. We have a couple of videos that these guys helped me make. And I've got gold label guitars out on tour with bands. And let me tell you, nothing but happy replies, nothing but perfect, glorious feedback from all of those guitar techs saying, oh man, I was here yesterday and here today, and that guitar went whack, and now they can just change it and adjust it, micro adjustments, and it's great. We got another question here.
Okay.
The truss rod is not necessarily there to set the action. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Great question. One of the best that'll probably ever come up.
Gold star.
The
Gold star, man.
Gold star. The truss rod only adjusts the neck. There is a byproduct of the action feeling like it's changing. Okay. But you can have a perfectly adjusted neck with a terrible playing guitar.
Yeah.
Okay. You just can. The neck can be perfect, but the action is either extremely high or extremely low. So great question. The truss rod isn't the action adjustment. It is just part of the system to get you there, having the neck adjusted properly. And honestly, that's something where I'm working with technicians. I still have a hard time explaining to them because they'll send me photos of necks that are backbowed. And I'm like, well, you need to relieve the neck to get it back to straight. And then they go, but then the action will be super high. I'm like, well, yeah, because the angle is super low, but we have to get the neck back to straight to be able to see now what we have to do, tilting it, taking it off and resetting it. So with the gold label, it's like get it back to straight and turn that little nut and you're good to go on the inside. So great question. Great question.
Oh man, this is a nerdy show, Dar. I agree with you. It's a perfect level of nerditude.
Well,
Neil,
I'm trying to make it so it's understandable for everyone without going into the serious minutiae of what things are, because I can take us down a bad hole and I don't want to do that.
Okay, here's the question. How does this work on the gold label collection? Is the deep tenon radius to maintain wood-to-wood connection around the pivot point?
Okay.
Or is there something else? What is impact on sound?
Here's how this is working, okay? One of the greatest features about the gold label is the long tenon, but it's also bolted on the top. If you got to see the neck joint, there is a pocket that is sitting down into, making serious wood-to-wood contact. Not to mention, when the long tenon is slid down inside the guitar, it's making really nice contact with the sides of the tenon. Okay, so it isn't necessarily that it needs to make it in the front, because even on a dovetail, it's not making contact in the front. It's making contact on the side of the dovetail. If it was making contact in the front, you'd never be able to adjust it. Okay, we would never be able to sand the heel to allow it to tilt the neck. So the front of it is never touching anything, whether it's a dovetail, mortise and tenon, the old Taylor neck where we hollowed out the heel and it was bolted, and or now the gold label. Okay, we have to have room for that adjustment, but it's the side is where it's making that contact, as well as the top going into that pocket. So great question.
Check this out. I got a couple of fun little clips so you can see how the neck. Okay, so here's one angle. Rob's setting it in there. Here's another angle.
So you see that pot? You see? Okay, can you go back and then stop that video when I have it apart?
Maybe.
Right there.
Probably not.
Okay, but underneath you can see that chunk of mahogany. That's actually sits down into a pocket inlaid, very similar to the original NT, and it is bolted. It's in there solid. That neck ain't going anywhere with just that bolt there. You can pick the guitar up, hang it up, move it around.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it makes the heel stronger. Yeah.
The tenon will make the heel stronger.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then, like I said,
want to see that again?
Side to side together, really nice. Because that's really getting put inside that guitar a long way. So your side to side is excellent, strength wise, and then as well you have that freedom of movement. So
one more time. That was a fun one. Check this out. Sound effects would have been so much better. But instead of sound effects, Rob, how would you tune a guitar?
How do you go in tuning a guitar?
I'm just kidding. I won't play it again. Anyway,
tuning fork. Suck it up. Get better. Get that ear trained. Come on,
Rob,
get that ear trained.
Can you use a dinner fork if you don't have a tuning fork?
Well, I could, but I would probably be eating with it.
Have you ever used a tuning fork as opposed to a dinner fork to eat with?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I have. When you're on the road and you're trying and you don't have something, yeah. I actually
adapt and overcome.
Yeah, you have to. You got to do things sometimes. It's scary out there, everyone.
This is a nerdy episode. We've been here for a long time, so we'll start to wrap this thing up. However, I want to there's one more question I want to bring up. Question. How do you tell when a truss rod is maxed out?
Okay, well, maxed out could mean several things. Okay, maxed out as in the threads are maxed out to where you tighten the nut and nothing's happening, and now you're done. You can't tighten it anymore. I mean, there's maxed out. That's a version of maxed out. Maxed out could also be you've backbowed it to as far as it can go. Okay, that's also maxed out, but then you can't play the guitar. So maxed out can mean a lot. Now, I will say this because we do see people snapping their truss rod every now and again. It's not often, but
Jim
we do.
Does that all the time.
That whole get a bigger hammer thing, that's not good. Okay. What you do is if you're tightening your truss rod and it's getting tight and sticky, back it all the way off to where you can see the threads on the other side of the nut, a little drop of 3-in-1 oil, stand the guitar up a little bit, let it seep down into the threads, and then go back and readjust it. And you will find that it's going to be way easier. It's going to turn nicer, and you'll actually get more adjustment out of that truss rod. But maxed out, that's a question that could be very difficult depending on what you're considering maxed out.
So building on that, let's, people might not know why that's a concern. So if you bottom out, if you max out your truss rod, what happens from there if you have neck issues?
If you have neck issues and you've maxed out your truss rod, if you have a Taylor guitar, you're in great luck because you can get a new neck. Okay. And that neck just comes and inlays right back into the guitar and you're good to go. So what happens to a truly maxed out truss rod? I can explain it. Basically, what can happen is the shaft itself is a little bit softer, even though it's a hard wood. And that could be maple, it could be mahogany, it could be anybody's neck. And what you're doing is you're tightening the truss rod, and that nut on the other end is just creeping up and creeping up and creeping up because the wood is compressing. So you'll adjust the neck and everything's great. 2 hours later, you have bow in your neck again because it has been creeping. Now, sometimes you get lucky and that creeping stops. And then your neck's going to be fine forever because it hit a pocket and it's nice and hard. But that's usually what's going to happen if something is maxed out. So you'll definitely know it. You'll see, a good 1/2 inch of threads on the backside of the truss rod nut. You may see the washer and everything trying to go up under the fingerboard, and as well, your truss rod won't be able to be adjusted. So that's one of those things, but it's wood. This is organic. Those things can happen. And those, what's funny is it's an issue that needs to be handled, but nobody can predict when that happens. It's the piece of wood itself, and it's the tension that it's under. No one can predict.
And we go through great pains at Taylor Guitars to essentially train the wood. It's what it's called, training the wood, to where that doesn't happen. But
you try.
Trees are trees, and as we were saying in pre-production, where do trees come from? Soil, sunlight, and water. And we took all of it away, and it's constantly wanting to die. Yeah. We decided to make it into a musical instrument. So that's why we talk about, when we talk about humidity and issues with humidity, that's why that's so integral to the health of your guitar, because this tree is no longer getting water, but it needs water in order to keep its shape.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that too is it doesn't need much. Nope. And it isn't that it needs the water, it needs water vapor. Okay. So it doesn't need much. So the difference between like a 50% humidity guitar, full-size guitar at like 50 and 35%, that guitar lost 50 grams of water that was turned into vapor. Okay, so the weight of that guitar was 50 grams lighter than what it was originally if it's sustained at that 35%. So you would need to put 50 grams of fluid back into that instrument turned into vapor. So it's spread out. That 50 grams is spread out over the whole guitar. So it doesn't like go, wow, my guitar just gained weight. You don't notice it, but the guitar feels good because of it.
All right. We're going to answer a couple more questions. First off, I'm going to cheat down to the bottom here. Jordan, go ahead. Just return all your guitars where you bought them and buy a gold label. That is a joke.
You don't want to do that. You want to add onto your collection because, as we know, the appropriate amount of guitars is just one more.
That's it. And all the guitars are good. If you have a good guitar, keep your guitar just to go on to a new collection.
Yeah, I think in Jordan's case here, you need to get a better player, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, but now he wants to get the gold label. Okay, I get that. I understand that. And if you got to sell a couple guitars to afford it, go for it.
No,
but that's just the way it goes.
No, to quote Bob Taylor, you can afford anything you save for. Boom. I like that one. Larry has a question up here. So tenon is really tight to the sides. So the wood under the frets 14 to 20 are bolted solid and don't move with adjustment to the neck angle?
Yes. So that top section is solid. And if you saw the underside of the neck, there's actually a piece. It's about 1/8 of an inch route that's just past the tenon. And it's only the fretboard. And then 1/8 of an inch past that route is the extension piece that gets bolted in. And that's the flex point for the angle. So, and that's very much like any classic guitar. And that would include the Taylor where we glued the fingerboard and had the hand set neck. Remember, we're just hinging that at that 14th fret. That wood's just bending. That's what it's doing. And that's whether it's a Gibson, Martin, anything with a dovetail, anything with a mortise and tenon, that's how it's doing it. So this one is no different. We're bolted on the extension instead of glued. and we have that nice little hinge point. Our hinge point is slightly forward though. It's not right at the body joint. And that really helps guide the neck angle nicer than having it just hard cut at that body joint.
Yeah.
It's a nice roll with a nice roll off. It's actually, Andy nailed it. It's a beautiful design. When you look at it, it's a beautiful design.
I was driving back to Los Angeles from a shoot we had in LA with Andy. And I said, when did you know you had the action control neck figured out? He said it was on a trip to one of his last trips to Asia. So I think he was like headed to the airport in Tokyo or something like that. And he saw a building. It was a piece of architecture. And he's like, oh, there it is. And he had been working on it for years. And he saw something and it was like, oh, okay. That's how we have to do it.
That makes sense. I can do this.
I can do this. It was pretty interesting. Okay. A couple more questions. How do the different bracings, oh, this is a good one, affect the required adjustments on the neck?
Okay, well, that's actually a very good question, because if you have a lighter...
Phil asks wonderful questions, by the way.
Okay. Phil, if you have a lighter braced guitar, the top deflection could pull a little bit more. So at first, it may be beautiful, and then maybe 2 seasons down the road, you bought it in, say, 2015, and now it's 2018, and you're like, man, everything just kind of moved because that top just kind of deflection pulled in a little bit and settled. The neck rotated just slightly and settled, and now it's time to get everything put right back where it was originally, but to its new geometry where those braces sat and went, oh, I like being right here. So now you've adjusted that back into place, and it's basically going to be locked in there now. Very little is going to happen, maybe summer and winter truss rod adjustment, depending on where you live. But once that neck angle's done, you're probably pretty much done. You know, I think I mentioned in the article, Jim, where it's like 2 neck angles over the life of a guitar is probably about all it's ever going to need, because you don't know where you're going to move and what you're going to do. So having that easy adjustability is awesome. So, but bracing will affect it. If your top stays perfectly flat and never moves, the heel and top could rotate slightly and you may need just a little bit of work. But if, let's say you got a 12 string and it pulls a lot harder with those tensions, now you have the ability to put that thing right back where it was originally once it goes, this is where I live. Because once again, it is organic.
And it's so hard. It's like when we illustrate it, you saw those animations, and when you looked at the actual turn, you see like it's moving just a ton. It's really not. Like the neck angle adjusted. It's like a couple thousandths of an inch.
Yeah, like 10 thousandths of an inch movement at the heel is massive on a neck angle.
Yeah. So one of the questions, a follow up by Larry, was, so frets 15 to 20 don't change angle?
No. They have. If you looked at the neck, they have a nice roll off, just like all Taylors should have. Okay, we don't have a flat neck. If you did that, when you change the neck angle, you would end up with kick-ups and all kinds of weirdness would be going on, and you don't want that. So it has this nice, beautiful roll-off from that 16th fret area all the way down to the 20th. So you can kick it back slightly, you can drop it slightly, and you don't get these extreme drop-offs and you don't get extreme kick-ups. It's quite elegant when you as a technician for myself, to do these major adjustments to see what it's going to do. Now, I'm not telling you guys to do that, but I'll take it to the extremes because I want to know them to do that. I want to know what the max is that I'm going to get out of this thing. So, but I was impressed. I was thoroughly impressed. So that stays there and stays beautiful.
All right. We got one more ENT question, and then I'm going to hold on. Where'd it go? I had it. Where'd it go? Oh, it's right here. And then I'm going to kind of just close off the show. We're going to wrap this thing up.
Okay.
All right. So is there an order to tightening the bolts, the NT bolts?
100%. There's an order to removing them, and there is an order to tightening them.
And there's a phone number to call to your nearest tech to have to do it.
Carr, would you like to know what the order of operation is?
Yes.
Okay. Removing the neck. Extension bolt is first. That's the one up under the extension. That's the first bolt removed. Then it doesn't matter which one of the heel bolts are removed. You can do the bottom to the top, top to the bottom. However, you're putting the neck back on the guitar. You're standing the body up, you're sliding the neck into the pocket, and you're putting in the top heel bolt first. Okay? Then the extension bolt. And then now these are all tight. Now these aren't just like kind of hand fit. These are tight. And then you loosen your top heel bolt, tighten it, and then you put in your bottom bolt, and you're done. There's your order of operation.
Bingo. We did it. Okay.
Got a little nerdy there.
That was a good question.
That was a great question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
All right. So real world benefits real quick. I'm going to rifle through these things.
Mhm.
For players, easily tweak action to match your playing style. That's a quick, easy fix. Adjustment. Perfect for touring musicians. Like I said, facing climate changes. You go from one climate and one city into another city, or you go from an outdoor show to an indoor show. Your guitars are going to adjust. For technicians, Rob can speak to this in depth, but quick service with minimal tools, no shim inventory needed. That's a good one. No shim inventory needed. You just adjust.
Just adjust.
Player testimonials. It's really funny. I told you I sent a couple of these videos that we've done to guitar techs on the road, and it's, one of them is almost 12 minutes long, and they watch the entire video and then they call me. They don't text. They call me and they say, "Are you blankety blankety blank kidding? This is the greatest thing I've ever experienced." So I have had zero frustrations with this. It's fantastic. And the cool thing is, in a couple of players' examples here, they've said, "I can fire my guitar tech."
No, you don't do that. There is so much more.
I don't want you to fire your guitar tech. And you know
Don't
what I
do
always
that.
say?
The
And I was like,
guitar is
then,
way more intricate than just turning a truss rod or a
Right.
nut on the axle.
and I'm like, then you would have to change your own strings. And they're
Yeah.
like, never mind. I'll never fire
Yeah.
my guitar.
Plug it in yourself, change your batteries, clean your instrument. Yeah, you don't want to be doing that. Let the pros help you there. You're the pro player. Let the pro tech help you on the other side.
Absolutely. Keep guitar techs employed. That is a big deal. Maybe I'll start some sort of fund. Anyway, okay. In conclusion, preserving tradition while innovating, seamless blend of modern engineering and traditional aesthetics. These gold label instruments are phenomenal. They really are. Taylor guitars, they're phenomenal, right? And the innovation from start to finish. Bob wanted to win at how a guitar felt in your hands and how easily playable it was. He's been doing it for 50 years. And
I wore my 50-year Taylor shirt. See, I'm representing.
We're in our 51st year, and we're only going to keep innovating. And this was one that was just phenomenal. Andy picks up that spirit and keeps marching on, and it's really been fun to watch. And I can tell you, these guitars are so easy to play. It's brilliant. And our commitment to continuously evolving to meet the needs of players. That's why we call this the pursuit of playability. Somebody, I believe it was Tex, asked about the FERC adjustable neck. And I think when I asked Andy, we talked about this in an earlier episode, but when I asked Andy said, he told this funny story about driving, and when you're driving, you look out at all these cars on the road. You're like, all these cars need a little bit of adjustment. Right? When they take it off you take it off the lot, you drive it for a few weeks, and you're like, all these cars could use a little bit of fine tuning somewhere, right? After 3,000 miles, you got to get an oil change. So micro adjustments, when you grab your guitar, not every guitar is perfect the second you pick it up.
Exactly.
Not every guitar. Some guitars, it's like, oh, this is the one.
I try to have people, before you go to do anything crazy, play the guitar for a little while.
Yeah.
Learn what the guitar is going to do, and then decide what you want to do with it.
Yeah. The action control neck is the most advanced player-focused neck to date as far as the Taylor line is concerned. So we're really excited about it. That's what we got. That was the show.
A little nerdy, but we got there. A little nerdy.
We did the show with the nerddom. That's okay.
Rob's awesome. Rob is asking. So we did this video where we shot through paper. Rob is so great. He's trying to recreate this idea that we did. It's so fantastic. I love the fact that you answered this question. I swear we have BTS of it. I'm going to find it somewhere. I swear I'll send it to you. Anyway, Rob, you're great. Everybody, you're great. We usually wrap up with 2 minutes of sports. Do any of you have something to say about sports?
Shedeur Sanders fell.
Okay. 144. That was it. He was 144th pick in the draft, and he is now.
I just think someone was the 145th, so it ain't all that bad.
He's the 5th string quarterback on the Browns.
Yeah, that quarterback room is full.
Rephrase that. The battle is for 3rd string between him and Kenny Pickett.
There you go.
That's if Deshaun Watson can play.
This is the battle for the 3rd string.
Deshaun Watson can't even play.
Watson's gone, so it's going to be you know that you've got Flacco, and then the 3rd round pick that they got. I can't remember his name, but he's a good kid. Also, he's on the team. He's on the team, and so is Flacco. Now it's going to determine who is the 3rd string QB, and that's going to be between Kenny Pickett and Shedeur.
Kenny Pickett gets traded.
Who's your NFL team, Jim?
That would be the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Always with the front runner.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Jim. Man, it's been fun watching Jim's excitement about football, that's for sure.
Yeah, him and Taylor at work. Taylor Dwyer too. Boy, they're just Eagle fanatics. When you talk fanatic, whoo, man.
This was the nerdiest show I think we've ever had, but I appreciate both of you for your time, Jim.
We went way deeper than anything I've ever done on any of these. So
the story is fantastic. I linked it in the comments in the feed here. I will link it in the comments after the show. Go over, check out Jim's Wood&Steel story about this. It has those long form videos of explaining the adjustability. It has some really great clips of Bob and Kurt talking about this from the 50-year podcast. What a nerd.
It has some great illustrations too. I actually asked Jim to send me those that I'm going to use for training. Yeah. There are some excellent ones about a low neck angle, high, too much bow, too little a bow. I mean, they're excellent. So you have to open those, click on it, let them drop down and see them. They're excellent.
You know, we sometimes try and make these shows shorter, Mike. When it's a nerd fest, we fell hard on this one. But
we fail as much as Shedeur Sanders' agent.
Jim, Rob, you guys are always fantastic. We really appreciate it.
Always fun to hang with you and with the Taylor crowd out there. It's a blast. Love it.
Yeah, it's good times. Good times.
Great
questions tonight too. Great questions.
We love you guys for hanging out with us. You know, we started this during the pandemic, and we're still doing it. This was episode 116. Mike, we have done 116 things. You see, I waited just for you, dude.
Thank you, because I usually chastise you at the top of the shows.
What a brilliant show. This was great. You guys are nerds. Have a good show. Have a good time, everybody. Have a good evening. Go Tigers. All right. I know I'm wearing a Cubs hat, but I have this thing that I think if I don't wear a Tigers hat all year, they'll keep winning.
Man, these superstitions.
I don't know. My mom and I are going to a show soon, or a Tigers game, so it'll be exciting. Anyway.
Okay.
Nerds, have a good night. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Ending the show.
See you, everybody.